So to recap a Steelers bye week, okay? The whole AFC North won, and the AFC teams that played NFC teams all won. And now Dan Moore might be the left tackle again. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Back to Football. Welcome back to football. The Steelers are back from the bye week. Today is Monday, October 16th, 2023. Of course, you're locked into the Southside Beat, as you are every Monday through Friday, 3 to 3:30 Eastern here on DK Pittsburgh Sports on YouTube, live at 3 o'clock and then later available where podcasts are found. He is Chris Halicke. I am Corey Crisan. I am back from day one of the return for the start of the rest of the season. And as I said, Dan Moore, he says he's working with the ones again, Chris. So here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. It's the Joey Porter Jr. situation, but on the other side of the ball. The only thing I can really say when it comes to any kind of optimism that Broderick Jones will actually take over as left tackle is today was kind of a bonus day. You know, this typically isn't a practice day for the players, you know, in a normal week.
Yes.
You know, when they're playing Sunday to Sunday, you know, they don't get out on the practice field like have an organized practice like this. So it is kind of a bonus day. So maybe they just want to get Dan Moore in there where he's comfortable just to see how he's doing. I don't know. The true tell will be when the depth chart comes out tomorrow, right before Tomlin's press conference. That will be the first tell for sure. If Dan Moore is still listed as the starting left tackle, then there's no argument there. Of course, you know, it could be addressed at Tomlin's press conference. Is Dan Moore the starter? Why is Broderick Jones not starting? So on and so forth. And then Tomlin can give the answer. But that'll be the first real tell, of course, though, today with him being the ones that still is, you know, a bit of a sign.
It's significant because think of it this way, too. If Broderick Jones was going to start, there's no question that he needs work. He's a rookie. He's started in one NFL game.
Yeah.
He needs work. So, therefore, he will need all the reps that he can get at left tackle alongside Isaac Seumalo. So, for me, if Broderick Jones was a shoo-in to start on Sunday in Los Angeles, I think he would have been the first team left tackle for the majority of practice today. Now, Dan Moore did say he was out there for every period, but kind of was limited because he's still obviously working back from a knee issue. So It's not like he took all of the snaps at left tackle. It's not like he took everything away from Broderick Jones. So now we have to, like you said, wait for the rest of the week. And obviously Tomlin will address this in some fashion tomorrow. Yeah. So he's not cemented as the starter again at left tackle. But for the Broderick Jones people out there that want to see Broderick Jones start, this is a discouraging sign. Because like I said, you would think that if Jones was going to start, then he would be firmly in with the ones today in practice. But that's not what it sounds like from the Steelers' end.
Hey, Robert, those Tomlin press conferences happen every week. You didn't see one last week because it was a bye week. But every time there's a game coming up, there's a Tomlin press conference. So
yes,
it's a Tomlin Tuesday unless the Steelers are on a bye. So
we'll have one of those tomorrow. But today, after today's practice, was also an opportunity to speak with some of the Steelers that are returning. And this morning, the news dump came across that Deontay Johnson and Anthony McFarland returned to practice today.
Great news
so
for both. Yep.
Well, not just for both, but also for Pat Freiermuth. Pat Freiermuth said after today's practice that he's on track to play on Sunday. So those are, with Deontay and Freiermuth, two obviously major weapons, arguably Kenny's top two of the top three targets, for Pickett. And then Anthony McFarland, who had a really good training camp, but saw his knee get banged up. He played through it. He said he played through it, in the first couple of weeks of the season. Yeah. And then he lands on IR, prior to week 3. So not just Deontay and Freiermuth, but Anthony McFarland as well. So the Steelers are getting back two obviously major contributors, but Anthony McFarland is one, with the kick return game as well, and the special teams. And they're gonna use a guy like him in situations where you don't have to use Najee Harris or Jalen Warren.
Yeah, for the anti-gunner people, McFarland being back in the mix should help in that regard. But no, getting Deontay and Freiermuth both back, if they are indeed both back on Sunday, and both players have indicated that they will play on Sunday. Obviously, there's still the injury report, there's still practice to go through, and to see if any setbacks happen. But if nothing happens in that regard, then you would assume that, players usually don't try to say, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to play, and then they end up not playing. Usually they're pretty sure about it. But both of those guys should inject quite a bit of life into what's been a really stagnant offense, to be kind. I did a Chalk Talk piece, late last week about Deontay's return. Still had some people arguing with me saying, well, this offense wasn't great with Deontay. Why is it going to all of a sudden be great when Deontay's back? Well, believe it or not, the offense is actually even worse than it was last year with it. And Deontay's not even played for 3 full quarters. So maybe there's a piece of the pie right there. The fact that this offense is just not doing anything that it should do, anything close to what it should do. And getting Deontay back absolutely helps whatsoever.
Deontay, let's not forget, was leading the team in targets week 1. He's been a mainstay here. We talked about this, I think, late last week. He's been a mainstay here even through the Roethlisberger years. Like, he has the utmost trust from Kenny Pickett, and he's going to do all the technical work. He's going to take looks away from George Pickens, but at the same time, he's also going to take attention away from George Pickens, and that's going to help. These two are just going to complement each other so well, I think. And with your Chalk Talk piece, really laid that out well. Swan269 says, can't watch today, but wanted to give a thumbs up and then listen tonight. Remember, this episode and every other episode of the Southside Beat is available on playback at any time, 24/7 on demand, either on DK Pittsburgh Sports on YouTube for the video version, or if you prefer audio only, where podcasts are found, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, we're all there. So appreciate the look there. Please, of course, subscribe if you haven't. Like this episode, share this episode. That's the best way to spread the word about the show and help the show grow, and we greatly appreciate that.
Here's kind of a beat question here. Do they have to cut someone from the 43 in order to make room for Deontay and McFarland?
From the 53, I believe they will.
Well, yeah, it's so whenever they were placed on IR, they obviously had to fill their spots. And so now that they have to come with them coming back from IR, when they are activated, yes, they will have to make room on the 53-man roster.
Yes.
It's just, it's typical stuff. Nothing out of the ordinary there.
Crystal says she hopes they practice in pads 3 times this week. That is not allowed.
Can't do that.
The NFL Players Association, this is the union stuff. So if you want to fight the union over this, by all means, go ahead. But the NFLPA, there are rules within the negotiated CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, that players can only practice once a week in pads, and that's it. That's the maximum. So, and I believe the number of padded practices throughout the season are capped. So they literally can't hold more than one a week, but also they can't hold one every week either.
Yeah, this is not football from 20 or 30 years ago.
Right. A lot of talk in the comments about Los Angeles, and of course, justifiably so. It's arguably, and we'll talk more about the Rams specifically later in the week.
Oh, yeah.
And especially after Tomlin talks about them tomorrow. But the Rams, to me, are one of the surprise teams in the NFL. I didn't expect them to do too much this year. Puka Nacua as an emerging wide receiver, getting Cooper Kupp back, and he
was a waiver claim for me in week 1, man.
Yeah, same here.
I'm just that's the league that I already have Jamar Chase and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Must be nice.
So it's very nice.
But this Rams offense is better than advertised. They finally realized Kyrie Williams is their best running back and started using him like so, and got rid of Cam Akers. And Sean McVay is a genius on the offensive end. This is a Super Bowl franchise of recent years. This is a Super Bowl roster still in some ways. They obviously have one of the greatest defensive players, if not players ever, in Aaron Donald. It's very arguable to say a top 5 defensive player of all time in Aaron Donald. So the Steelers have their work cut out for themselves coming out of the bye, but the schedule does lighten up along the way, and obviously we'll dive more into that. But just early thoughts on the Rams for you, Chris.
Yeah, I agree, man. That they really have been quite a surprise. I don't remember exactly what I predicted their record would be whenever I was doing my preseason predictions, but it wasn't very favorable. I want to say maybe 4-13 or 5-12, something like that. It was not very favorable. I did not think they were going to be a good football team, but man, Sean McVay just proving that he's still a really, really good head coach. This is a really well-coached football team. Obviously, they still have some players, but they're really getting the best out of some players, and some players that were even a couple players that were discarded from the Steelers.
Yes,
obviously. So
and they're getting the best out of both of them. That's not an understatement.
Yeah, we put it in the Steelers feed. I think it was late last week. Kevin Dotson talking about the differences between playing for Sean McVay and Mike Tomlin, and some of the words that he used might not have shed Mike Tomlin in the best light. But if you watch the interview and you watch the way he's talking, I don't think he's trying to like crap on Tomlin or anything like that. He's just trying to really, explain the differences and talking about what it's like playing for a new head coach, because obviously that's new, it's fresh. He's having success. He's gonna talk up the guy he's playing for right now. So I don't think it was anything like that, but good for Kevin. He worked really, really hard when he was with Pittsburgh. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the Steelers made a decision to be like, we could try to trust the process with Dotson, or we have an opportunity to sign Isaac Seumalo in free agency and just commit the money. And
that's what they chose.
Yeah, it's the direction they chose, and I honestly can't even argue with it. Even though Dotson is playing really, really well, who's to say he would play that well with the Steelers? He just may be in a better fit, schematically, for what the Rams do. And also Isaac Seumalo has been far from the worst offensive lineman on the Steelers so far. So I don't know.
Well, Seumalo's pass protection has been much better over the last two games.
Yeah.
Much better pass protection.
Which is the main reason why they brought him in.
Yes.
It wasn't just, obviously you need some run blocking from Seumalo, but they mainly brought Seumalo in so that they would have somebody up the middle who could protect Kenny. And for the most part, he's absolutely done that. Any issues with Kenny getting hit has either been on the tackles or it's been with Kenny himself.
And then, of course, Ahkello Witherspoon playing, really solid alongside, the Rams secondary. Now, there's been a lot of discourse floated around about what moves the Steelers made in the offseason to address the secondary, and it's pretty easy to say, well, Levi Wallace and Pat P haven't played well this season in a whole sense, and letting Cam Sutton and Ahkello Witherspoon go were fatal flaw mistakes. It's easy to say that now. At the time, letting Witherspoon go, he'd been banged up for a bit. It wasn't really thought of twice, but the one, and we don't have to get into Cam Sutton too much, but I think that was the one where people are like, why'd they let this guy go? And keep in mind, the Lions, made an offer to him and they just didn't match it. So, it was a little bit of a different instance, but my point is Witherspoon, and he's been playing really well for the Rams this year.
And let's just be real here. There's nearly 100 people watching this live right now. If you said at the time, like during the offseason when the Steelers were, doing all the cap juggling that they were doing to bring in all the players that they were doing, who here was an Ahkello Witherspoon apologist? Who here of the people watching was clamoring for the Steelers to keep Ahkello Witherspoon in the fold? Because I'm not saying that nobody was, but that wasn't a tweet or a reply or a comment on a story that I was seeing very often.
No.
It just wasn't.
No.
Usually that was, there are some cap savings right there by getting rid of Ahkello.
We could actually go back and find that if we really wanted to. It's just to see like who was, we lost.
Hindsight's 2020. We can, you can see what Ahkello Witherspoon's doing right now in LA and be like, man, why'd the Steelers let him go? But then at the time, whenever the Steelers were actually making the decisions to shape their roster, nobody was clamoring for Ahkello to stay on there. If anything, they were just like, let's just save the salary cap money now. Like, why is he still on the? And then when he was finally let go, it was like, okay, well, fine, thank you. Like, that's now granted, the Cam Sutton's a different story, and Cam Sutton was a different story with the Steelers too. The Steelers were not looking to get rid of Cam Sutton. They were wanting to bring him in. I was told repeatedly by people in the organization he was the priority in free agency. It doesn't always work out. It just doesn't.
Mr. Jimmy D. Oh, real quick before I go to Mr. Jimmy D. Damon asked, you know how much longer Cam will be out? It sounds like another month or so, I would say, until he's back in action. You know, at the time of the injury, the reports came out and said he'd be out about 2 months, so about 8 weeks. And you carry into week 9, week 10, you know, for him to even get back to football stuff. I mean, there's going to be processes for him to take with this groin that he had surgery on. So I would assume he'll be back for the last, 7 games or so of the season, but no real indication, even from Cam, has come out. Mr. Jimmy Dean asks, or says rather, Aaron Donald's going to kill Mason Cole at center. He will need help. Here's the thing about Mason Cole, and I know he hasn't played well this year, okay? But he has faced Aaron Donald 5 times in his career. It's a handful of times. It's around that much with his time in Arizona. So he has an idea, at least, of what to expect for Aaron Donald. And that's nothing, or that's rather not something a lot of centers in this league could say, is that they have an idea of what to expect from Aaron Donald, who has just about everything in his toolbox.
Yeah. Listen, there's no secret. And the chalk talk that's going to be coming out this week, I've been working on it today, probably coming out tomorrow. It's related to the run game. That's all I'll kind of give on a teaser for it, but it's related to the run game. And just by watching the film that I've watched today, it really is kind of mind-boggling how poor his performance has been this season. Like, it really had, he wasn't amazing last year, but he was a pretty good center last year. Like, he wasn't, I mean, I'd say probably middle of the pack, but in the higher part of that middle pack. Like, I thought he was a pretty serviceable is probably the best word that I can put it, but then you go along with the fact that he was also a really good leader in that room. I mean, absolutely. If you brought that back and got that same performance again, like, you take that every single time. It's just, he's missed assignments. He's getting pushed back. Some of the things that the Steelers are asking him to do schematically is just not fair. So part of that's not on him, but the assignments that he's had, he's getting pushed around way too often. I don't know if it's a health issue that he's just not talking about, that the Steelers aren't talking about. I don't know what it is, but I can't put 2 and 2 together on this one.
Mark says, real quick, Mark says, regarding Sutton, Detroit went Godfather on him, made him an offer he couldn't refuse. There's some truth to that. Some teams will do that. If they
3 years, $33 million, why would a cornerback turn that down? Especially one who, yeah.
If organizations like the Lions, who, like, they're really pressing the acceleration button on this, rebuild that's been going on since 1957, that's not an exaggeration. I think that the Lions have to do something like that. They have to go out and do a move like that. And it was hard for the Steelers to match something like that, quite frankly. Real quick, we're stepping away from football to ask Chris. Matthew asks, how was the fair? Chris went to the Texas State Fair over the weekend.
Great. Had some it was fun. Thankfully, I don't know if anybody paid attention to the news outside of Pennsylvania, but there was actually a shooting at the fair on Saturday. We went Friday.
Did not see that.
There was a shooting at the fair Saturday. Apparently it was somebody. It wasn't like the mass shootings that we've, like the one here that happened in Allen, a few months ago, or any of the other mass shootings. And I am not bringing this up to start political conversations. Believe me, that is not I'm just saying, like, it wasn't that type of a situation where somebody's coming in with an AR or something like that, trying to shoot, tens of people, or however many. It was apparently somebody who felt threatened and shot out of self-defense and didn't have a license to carry. And it was just, reading about the whole thing, it was just scary. But thankful that we went on a day where that didn't happen. But other than that, it was a lot of fun. Really good food. I had fried Frito pie bites. I did not get a chance to find the fried s'mores, so I was a little upset about that. But tried a couple of nice, craft beers. It was good. It was a good time. The kids had a lot of fun. Wife had a lot of fun. It was it's always a good time going to the fair. Just a lot of money dropped.
Oh, all the state fairs. Yeah,
I don't even want to say how much money I spent. I don't even want to say.
You don't have to. I already understand it. I've gone to the New York State Fair, the Ohio State Fair, I get it just from those two perspectives. I get it. Crystal asks, do you take the over or under for the Steelers to score at least one rushing touchdown? I hope you're not asking for the season.
They got to score one of. Well, yeah. I mean, if
it's not for the season, Crystal.
Oh God, man, you would hope it'd be at least one for the season. Lord,
for Sunday, we'll see. One for the season, yes, I'll take the over on that. Randy brings up there's plenty of evidence that other teams also make huge offensive play calling blunders. The Giants making the huge blunder in the first half of the Bills last night at the end. The Giants are a blunder. Drafting Daniel Jones 6th overall was never the right idea. Dave Gettleman had no clue what he's doing, and now this franchise is recovering from a really bad era and a really bad general manager. So, yes, it isn't just the Steelers. There are plenty of other bad offenses in the NFL to talk about. In fact, there are worse ones than the Steelers, believe it or not, that we could talk about in the NFL. But it's very
appreciate that, Lyle. Good to know that I'm the first person you think of. I really appreciate that. Yes,
appreciate that, Lyle.
I went Friday, not Saturday.
Well, there you go.
But no, I mean this Sunday when it comes to the running, I mean the Rams don't necessarily have they don't have the Browns defense or the 49ers defense when it comes to stopping the run. And I can't even say the Browns, anyway, in terms of what they were able to do to the Steelers, the Rams are, I think, 21st ranked rush defense. There will be opportunities.
Yes.
To run the football. This is not a situation where the Steelers are like, oh, well, we can't run the ball, so let's just go and air it out. No, this is a game where they need to try to establish the run. For sure.
James asks, they like Mason Cole for his ability to help Kenny Pickett read defenses. When does James Daniels come back? I think that could be this week. So we are waiting currently for the injury report. We'll see if we get it within the next 10 minutes or so before we sign out of here. But that injury report will be very key. Coming out of a bye week where over the week they had literally 7 days to get healthy. They had 7 days to rest, to not do anything football related. Now, they got back on the field for a practice early last week, but make no mistake, they weren't, crashing pads or helmet hitting or anything like that. They were taking it very light. It was a walkthrough of sorts just to start cleaning things up. And then the work for the Rams began today. So we will see, or we'll see an injury report, I should say tomorrow. Did I say today? I meant tomorrow. So, about this time tomorrow within the next,
I think injury report will come out on Wednesday.
Oh yeah, that's right. Wednesday. My days are all mixed up. This is what the bye week does.
Yeah.
This is what the bye week does. Not today, not tomorrow, Wednesday.
Yeah. Wednesday will be the first one.
Yeah. Cam Hayward was reported to be running last week by Craig Wolfley and Max Starts on Steelers Nation Radio.
That's a good sign.
Yes. I saw that same report and he was. So,
good sign.
We'll see what happens with Cam Hayward. Now that can mean anything. That could mean, a light jog. That can mean a sprint. That can mean a lot of different things.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers already on the field after, having throwing the football after having an Achilles tear. I mean, did Cam have some sort of secret, special surgery Aaron did apparently?
Oh my goodness. Maybe it's all the herbs that he consumes. That might help him. Eric says, speaking of players moving on, do you guys ever give a thought on Stephon Tuitt didn't walk away? There's a blast from the past, and we kept Javon Hargrave. Be pretty good up front. I mean, that's true to a degree, and if Tuitt never walked away, who knows where this interior or defensive line would be. However, I think there's good optimism with Keanu Benton. Obviously, Cam Hayward hasn't slowed down when he's healthy.
No.
I think the interior does need some help, and I like Larry Ogunjobi. But I think the interior D-line does need some help. It's why on Thursday when we talked about somebody asked in our Q&A session, what position would you look for or what would the Steelers do? I threw around the idea of looking at interior D-line, looking at a nose tackle, finding help inside to help stop the run. So, yes, that's the ayahuasca. That's it, Michael.
Yeah,
that's the Aaron Rodgers potion, if you will.
I try to avoid the hypothetical situations, not only as a just professionally, but even as a sports fan. Just because if you start going down that road, that hypothetical road, like if Stephon Tuitt never retired early, or if, just because then I could really, really go down that road and be like, what if Mario Lemieux never had all of the ailments that he had during his playing career? What if he never had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma? What if he never had the back issues? Like, would he actually be up there with Wayne Gretzky in terms of like overall numbers? What if Sidney Crosby was never hit by David Steckel in the Winter Classic? Like I could just go down that hypothetical road and just, I know I'm going to another sport, but I'm just saying, like, as a sports fan, like that's where my mind goes so I try not to entertain the hypotheticals too much.
I mean, you could do it forever. You could do it with any player at any given time. Bob says, I don't get shelving. Well, what if Joe Green did sell his soul to play forever? You never know. Maybe the Steelers would just never have to.
I think somebody would have caught on eventually if the guy wasn't ever aging and was still beating the crap out of quarterbacks in the 2010s.
Bob also says, I just don't get shelving all of these rookies. If they're good enough to draft and they need to get ready, they are going to get better watching. Coach them up for game experience. That's one way to do it. Like, there's no replacement for being on the field on Sundays, for being in the, as Mike Tomlin says, stadium environment, from being out there against the Ravens like Broderick Jones was. No drill or pad work or anything like that he does with Pat Meyer on Tuesday through Friday is going to be a substitute for what he was able to do last Sunday. And the same goes for Joey Jr. In that moment of being one-on-one with Odell Beckham, you can't get that replicated on the South Side. You just can't. Yeah. So there's truth to that. There's absolutely truth to that, which is why I think that if you see Dan Moore at left tackle on Sunday, which if today is any indication, you probably will, then a lot of people are going to be upset over it because you saw Broderick Jones play well. That's what makes this whole thing difficult. If Broderick Jones didn't play well against the Ravens, people wouldn't be batting much of an eye at Dan Moore coming back at left tackle. People would be saying, well, Broderick needs more work. He needs to do this and that and the other. But Broderick played really well against the Ravens. And if Dan Moore's the left tackle against the Rams, then, people are going to be upset about that. But this is what the Steelers do. This is their plan. This is their identity. And they're not going to shy away from it anytime soon.
No, okay. AJ actually brings up a really, really good point here. But I mean, at least I'm taking it in a different way. He said, speaking of Tuitt, Steelers took a long time to recover from departures of Worlds, Tuitt, and Shazier. Crazy talent lost prematurely in 10 years. Like, listen, the Steelers tried to do something about, the losses there. Obviously they traded up to draft a guy like Devin Bush, and obviously that did not work out. But when you talk about those are three examples of players who like left early, for whatever reason. Obviously Shazier was forced to because of the injury, but then to it, personal reasons, Worlds, personal reasons. Not that Jason Worlds was ever like an amazing impact player, but he was a good player. I mean, he definitely, you could leave him, you could have him out there and he would be able to play his position pretty well. But still, those are three players that all had an impact on the defensive side of the ball that the Steelers had to try to find a way to make up for. And this was during a time, I mean, we're talking about Worlds to it kind of near a little bit afterward, but with Shazier and Worlds specifically, this was during a time in which the Steelers had a juggernaut offense. And the one area where they weren't, that was severely lacking, was on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, we saw it in 2017, a team that won fully healthy was a Super Bowl contender. Shazier goes down with his injury. All of a sudden the defense can't stop anybody, can't stop Blake Bortles in the playoffs for crying out loud. And all of a sudden they're not a Super Bowl contender anymore. It shouldn't rely on just one guy, and that's like, that is something that the Steelers have had to navigate. It just is. So kind of a good point brought up there.
Irving says, heard Dan Moore ran with the ones today and was ready to start. Irving, I reported that. Thank you. Reminder, on DKPittsburghSports.com, on our Steelers feed, I'm reporting right from the locker room in real time as things are happening. So when Dan Moore says, yeah, I practiced with the first team today, I was standing from me to this microphone away from him when he said that. And listen, we have everything we can get on DKPittsburghSports.com in real time, as updated as quickly as we possibly can. And that's all I can really say about it. I mean, that's what we're here for. We're the Southside Beat for a reason. We are boots on the ground in the locker room, talking to Dan Moore, talking to Pat Fryermuth, talking to Anthony McFarland, as you'll read today on the site, talking to Allen Robinson. I spent one-on-one time with Allen Robinson. So I also heard that.
If I can add a little color to it, Corey is the Jim Nantz and I'm the Tony Romo.
Sure. I mean, in that way, yes.
I'll do my best Tony Romo impression. Oh, Jim! Oh, Jim, hello. Look what he's doing, Jim. Oh, Jim.
All I can do to try to emulate the great Jim Nantz is just say, hello, friends.
Jim. Mark's saying something here, Jim.
Oh, my goodness. Mark is saying Worlds was getting better and better when he decided to retire. Sometimes players do that. They just decide they're done. They hang him up. Luke Kuechly, great example as well. Top of his game, arguably at the top of his game, and decided to hang it up. Ryan criticizes Jim. Tony, Chris. For his impression of Tony Romo. Says, Chris, why?
Oh my goodness. I mean, when you can do an impression, you do the impression. Thank you, James. I appreciate it.
James liked the impression.
I mean, all you have to do is just kind of make your voice a little rusky, or and just Jim, and just say Jim's name like 10 times in 5 seconds, and you got it pretty good.
I think that's an indication for us to sign off. Tomorrow is a Tomlin Tuesday. Mike Tomlin will take to his usual stand at the UPMC Rudy Sports Complex at noon Eastern tomorrow for his weekly press conference to preview the Rams. I will be there, and we will be here on the Southside Beat at 3 p.m. Eastern, live to talk about it. Once again, we're back into football mode. It's been a weird weekend with the whole AFC essentially winning, and then, not getting much help. The Steelers are not getting much help. And, oh, by the way, Dan Moore played left tackle with the first team again today. So,
okay, I have a final thought for today.
Go ahead.
If we can, we need to put a number out there. If we can get the show up to, let's see, starting the week. So, okay, we'll include today's video along with the next 3 days. If we can get 10,000 views on these 4 episodes, today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, I will do all of Friday's show in a Tony Romo impression.
See, here's the thing that you just wagered, okay? And that's fine. However,
dude, if it gets growth, I'll do it. I am willing to do that for everybody.
Well, just know that on Friday, I'm traveling to North Carolina.
Even better.
For the Pitt Wake Forest game.
Even better.
So that would be Chris solo, more than likely, with all of you. And Chris has to do the show as Tony Romo the entire time. Now, here's the caveat. Rick says you're supposed to make us want to watch. Listen, I like the Tony Romo analyses. I think they're good. I've liked Tony Romo since he's taken over with Jim Nantz and that number 1 duty for CBS. So Chris laid the gauntlet out. I have nothing to add. So we'll see what happens if you all can make that happen. 10K views by the end of Thursday. We'll see if that happens. But thank you for tuning in today, as always. We greatly appreciate it. Appreciate you all bringing it. We'll be back tomorrow after a Tomlin Tuesday on the South Side. He's Chris. I'm Corey. This has been the South Side Beat. Cheers, everybody.